You see it all the time, right? Headlines screaming about some miracle cure or a breakthrough study. But how much of that can you actually trust? Well, today we're going to give you a toolkit, a way to spot flawed science so you can cut through all that hype and get to what's real.
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? When a study pops up claiming a new drug can lower anxiety, of course we want to believe it. Who wouldn't? But here's the thing. The road from a research idea to a solid conclusion, it's like a minefield. It's full of potential errors. So how in the world do we tell the good science apart from the bad?
It really all boils down to one core idea: research validity. The easiest way to think about it, it's like a seal of approval on a study. It tells us how confident we can be that what the researchers say they found is, well, real and true. Without it, a study isn't really science. It's just a bunch of numbers that might not mean anything.
So I've got this metaphor I like to use. Think of the whole research process as a gauntlet. Yeah, like a tough, grueling obstacle course. Every single study has to run through it to prove it's the real deal. And believe me, only the best, most carefully designed studies actually make it to the finish line with their findings still standing. And to get to that truthful conclusion, researchers have to successfully navigate this gauntlet. They have to dodge these huge obstacles that could totally wreck the results. And what's interesting is, most of these potential flaws fall into two big buckets. So, what are we talking about here? What are these obstacles? Well, first up, you've got the human factor. You know, the messy, complicated, unpredictable part of dealing with actual people. And then there's the numbers game. All the sneaky traps hidden in the data itself. We're going to start with the human side of things. All right, let's dive into that first major obstacle, the human factor. This is where it gets messy. Because let's face it, people are complicated. And in the world of research, this specific challenge has a fancy name: construct validity. Okay, so what is construct validity, really? It's simple, but it's so important. It asks one question: are you actually measuring what you think you're measuring? Let's say your study has a questionnaire to measure happiness. Is it really measuring happiness? Or is it maybe measuring something else, like just being excited or trying to give the right answers? If your measurement tools are off, guess what? Your conclusions are going to be off too. So, this part of the gauntlet, the human part, has 5 super common traps. And I'm telling you, once you learn what they are, you'll start seeing them everywhere. Let's break them down. All right, first trap, reactivity. Just think about it for a second. The moment you know someone is watching you, you change how you act, right? It's human nature. So a patient in a drug trial might get all excited just to be there. And maybe that excitement, not the actual pill, is what's making them feel better. They're literally reacting to being in the study, and that can totally mess up the results. Next up, researcher expectancies. Now, we'd like to think researchers are 100% objective robots, but they're human. They often really want their big idea to work, and that hope, that eagerness can accidentally leak out. They might subtly hint at what they want to see, and that influences how people respond. All of a sudden, the researcher's own hopes are a part of the experiment. Okay, threat number 3, novelty effects. You know that feeling when you get a new gadget, and for the first week it's the most amazing thing ever, but then the shine wears off? That's the novelty effect. In a study, people can get super hyped about a new therapy just because it's shiny and new. And that initial burst of enthusiasm can completely hide what the real long-term effect is. And here's a tricky one. It's not always about the people getting the treatment. Sometimes the control group, the folks who are supposed to be the baseline, can throw a wrench in the works. This is called compensatory effects. You might have staff feeling bad for them and trying to equalize things by giving them extra attention, or you get the opposite. The control group gets competitive, this rivalry, and they try extra hard to prove they're just as good without the treatment. In both cases, your clean comparison is totally shot. And the last big threat on the human side is what we call treatment diffusion. This is basically when the clean line between the two groups just dissolves. You know, maybe people in the control group start chatting with the treatment group, and they pick up some of the new techniques. When that happens, the lines get all blurry, and you have no idea what actually caused the results you're seeing. All right, we've made it past the human factor obstacle. Phew, now it's time for the second half of the gauntlet, the numbers game. This section is all about something called statistical conclusion validity, which I know sounds complicated, but it really just asks one simple question. Are the numbers telling us the real story?
Yeah, this quote here really nails it. Researchers use stats to see if there's a real connection between two things. Like, does this new drug actually have a relationship with lower blood pressure? Statistical conclusion validity is just our way of checking to make sure that conclusion, that inference we're making from the data, is on solid ground. So, one of the biggest number traps is something called low statistical power. This usually happens when the study has a really small number of participants. I mean, think about it. If you only study 10 people, you just might not have enough information to see a real effect, even if it's totally there. The connection might exist, but your study is just too small, too weak to actually detect it. And here's another classic data trap: restriction of range. Let's say you're trying to find a link between age and depression, but you only study people in a nursing home who are under 80. What if the real connection, the strongest link, is actually in people who are over 80? Well, by narrowing your group like that, you've accidentally made the relationship invisible. You've cut off the part of the data you needed to see the full picture. Even if you get the people right and the numbers right, a study can still fall apart if the treatment itself is a mess. We call this unreliable implementation. Was it even done correctly? Researchers have 3 key checks for this. First, a manipulation check. Did people even get what the treatment was? Second, an enactment check. Could they actually do it? And third, an adherence check. Did they actually stick with it? If you don't know the answers to these, you can't tell if the treatment ideal was bad or if it was just carried out poorly.
Okay, so we've run the gauntlet. We've dodged the human factor traps and we've navigated the numbers game. But you might be thinking, okay, this is all very academic, but why does it actually matter to me?
Because this stuff isn't just for researchers in white lab coats. Every single time you see a new story about a new diet or a different way to raise your kids or some amazing medical discovery, you are looking at the end result of a study that had to face this very same gauntlet. And once you know about these potential flaws, it gives you the power to ask the smart questions. You get to decide for yourself how much you should actually trust what they're saying. So think of this as your new personal flaw detection toolkit. The next time you come across a study, just run it through this mental checklist. Ask yourself, were the participants just reacting because they were being watched? Could the researchers' own hopes have skewed the results? Were the groups really kept separate? Was the sample size actually big enough to find anything? Did they study a wide enough range of people? Just asking these simple questions can save you from buying into a lot of bad science. Look, at the end of the day, this is all about making a shift from just passively accepting information to becoming an active critical thinker. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you're armed with all this, the next time you see a big, flashy headline making some huge claim, what's the very first flaw you're going to look for?